Jeffro from Two Hacks Garage. Well, back at Jimmy's, back on Project Jumping Jack Flash, our nostalgia front engine dragster. If you saw in that last video called Houston, we have a problem. Well, we did have a problem. Our fuel pump failed and it was no good. It ended up breaking a hex key on there. We had a backup one and the housing was cracked, so that didn't work. And we had another backup one and the bearing was bad. Come to the realization, a lot of these vintage speed parts, parts for them are extremely hard to find, and in some cases impossible. So instead of keep buying what I would call eBay or Facebook Marketplace pumps and try to go from there, Jimmy and I had to make a decision. And while we want to stay with fuel injection, we're going to end up doing that. What to make that work right now isn't exactly quote unquote in our price range. So you know what? Basically, we decided to stay old school and go with tunnel ram. And Jimmy had an Edelbrock TR1 intake base. It's a two-piece design, but the top for it he had machined at one point because he was going to put a 4-port Hillborn hat on that. So what we decided to do was go with tunnel ram. So off camera, off time, I found the correct base for that. I just got it in today, and Holley to the rescue. Why Holley to the rescue? Well, they make a very cool tunnel ram carb set. It's a pair of Holley 450s. They're flow tested and all that, jetted, ready to go for a tunnel ram. This is a small block Chevy. So you know what, guys? That's what we're going to end up going with is a vintage tunnel ram intake and a pair of Holley carburetors. That was what Jimmy was going to do there. So this is an old top, and I'll show you the new one. He was actually machining this down for a 4-port Hillborn hat. Maybe one day we'll actually get that done if we can find the right parts for it.
I've already got the metering, or not metering block, but I already have the distribution block for the hoses. I got the nozzles. The intake's all drilled, which I had to plug. But eventually it will become a fuel injector.
And it'll be a one-of-a-kind fuel injector that will be absolutely badass. So yeah, so we decided, we're going to stay old school for now. Instead of injection on methanol, we're going to go a pair of Holley 450s on a tunnel ram on 114 octane race gas. So what I did, I contacted Holley, ordered up these carbs, ordered up the right fuel pump, ordered up the regulator, all that type of stuff to make this thing work. With that, we do have to add an additional battery for this. Jimmy's been making the base plate for that. We got to plumb new fueling, and we got to make the linkage work for this. So we do have a lot of work cut out for us. This is probably going to be part one of Plan B. The reason I kept it secret and didn't quite say exactly at the time, well, I didn't know if I had got the top yet to this, and it was literally the only one I could find, and I was bidding on it. You know how that goes. Last second, you get sniped, you don't get it. That would have been no bueno. Good luck, I won it. I got it in today. It's a super hot Friday. Jimmy and I have a whole lot of work, but in this episode of Jumping Jack Flash, Holley the rescue. Let's keep this thing old school cool. And you know what? There's going to be an old school twist with this when it's done. See you in a little bit later. All right, so here's what we got working with. Jimmy showed you that other hat for the tunnel ram, and that one was the one he machined. Here's the one I got here. This is considered the old breadbox intake, and I'm going to show you the inside here in a minute. But this is how the setup's actually going to be. Still pretty old school, and like I said, there's going to be an old school twist with this once it's all done. But yeah, it's called a breadbox. I believe it's the first tunnel ram that was produced for the small block Chevy of this brand. But yeah, it's going to be pretty neat. Plan on running those in line like that. Should provide enough fuel for this small block. Yeah.
There's one Edelbrock made that I know of. Before that, they had those ram log things.
Oh yeah.
Individual tubes, and a lot of people made them out of a piece of water pipe and just down to the ports.
Right.
They were kind of crude, but this is the first one that had a plenum that intermixed everything together pretty much.
Yeah, kind of a homebrew.
On both bags.
So here we go, and let me show you the inside of this. It's kind of neat. These are going to be great carburetors for this setup. I'm pretty happy about that. I got a mess over here. We got so much stuff going on. It's crazy. So let me get this other carb off here and kind of show you what we got going on here. All right, so that's basically the top of what that looks like. It's pretty neat. As you can see, it sits at an angle so things stay level. But here's the cool part with this. If you notice how those runners are like that, and it's just open here on the bottom, I got to blast this. Jimmy's going to Cerakote it just like we did with the base. But if you see that resin in there, that's hard as a rock. Those tubes actually sat about an inch, inch and a half down to the base of that. And kind of an old school trick what these guys have been doing for years You can see how thick that is they filled them with resin, so fuel doesn't pool in there, and it's able to run right to the runners if any fuel gets past it. So yeah, staying old school, staying cool. Well, going to try to today. But you know what? We got work to do. Tell you what, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started on this. Like I said, it's a hot Friday afternoon. We got a lot of work to do. Hopefully in a video or two, we'll actually have this thing fired back up. See you soon. All right, well, it's the next morning. As you saw in that video, actually, Jimmy was working on some stuff in the background. I was wiring up for the fuel pump. There's the battery. Got it grounded. Got a wire ran. It goes back up into here, up into a switch, and back. So what's going to happen is Jimmy made a fancy bracket that's going to go along there to mount the fuel pump. The other thing is what we got done, Jimmy did blast the intake manifold top, got it all Cerakoted, needed some helicoils. That's in place. He made the gasket for that because you can't find gaskets for it, and just use some Felpro gasket material. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm going to start working on mounting some carbs on there, and we're going to start plumbing the fuel system, get all that wired up, and just go from there. See you in a few. All right, so we're going to call this a video. What I was able to do was I got the carburetors on there. I got throttle return spring on there. Pretty slick unit. I'll show that in a second. Fuel pump's on. It's plumbed to there. I got the line here with the filter up to the distribution block. Actually have the bracket made for that, which is here, and I need to get that taken care of so it looks pretty. Same thing with the thermostat housing cover. Need to make those pretty. So with that is Jimmy and I figured out the linkage on this, and he made a bracket that's going to go right here, and you'll have our throttle line. It's going to go right there and push that. And once he does that, I can hook this back up. That's the linkage 1-to-1 on the carburetors. So that's done. So yeah, going to call it a video on that. Like I said, Holley to the rescue on this one. As far as fittings go from our distribution block, there's a barbed fitting you can get. I believe it's Holley Part 26-29, and it's 9/16 by 24, and it replaces these, and it's got a 3/8 hose fitting, and which is going to be perfect because off this distribution block here, which is going to sit right here, it's going to have 2 braided lines that are going to go to those. So yeah, like I said, Holley rescue on this one, and it's been a long, hot day. Tomorrow's going to be another long, hot day because we still got a bunch of work to do. But with that, guys, Jumping Jack Flash, it's a gas, gas, gas. We'll see you in the next one. Later.